What are the pros and cons of handing out awards to children? From Player of the Day in sport to Winner of the Spelling Bee to Ducks of the School. Dr Elise Waghorn is a lecturer at RMIT University's School of Education in Melbourne. She says while awards can reward effort, they can also be unhelpful. Elise, good morning and thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Just how prevalent are they now, whether it's a top mark in a spelling test or, the sort of range of things for which we might hand out awards or rewards?
We seem to hand out participation awards all the time now, don't we? And what we've got to realise is it's not the actual awards that's the problem, it's the message that children are getting when they don't receive an award. So it's not necessarily the ones that are getting the awards that's the problem, because every child or parent loves to see their child be successful. What we've got to recognise is the children that never get them, what message is it actually telling them?
All right, so this can lead to some feeling left out, feeling like they're never getting anything. Some would say maybe that's why you have awards for, participating or completing a task or doing something to ensure that everyone gets some positive feedback. Is that not necessarily how it happens in reality, though?
In reality, it doesn't really happen. It tends to be the same children that generally get the awards all the time. And so the children that aren't getting them have that ability, or that they believe that the ability is fixed. So for example, they're simply not good enough, and that gives them that message that they're never going to be good enough, instead of seeing learning as something that they can grow towards an effort, and the effort that it put in is just as important as the actual outcome itself.
So we're really talking about that fixed mindset versus growth mindset, right? The reason that you're doing something in the first place and getting an intrinsic kind of reward rather than one that's handed to you.
Exactly right. And as we grow up as adults, we don't thrive off fixed mindsets. We thrive off that intrinsic motivation. You'd want to do something because it makes you feel good inside, or you get your own personal growth from it, not because you want to achieve something like an award or a pat on the back or something like that. So we've really got to look at, why are we doing this? What's the purpose behind it? And how does that give, across the board to all children, how can we provide more an inclusive environment for them?
Well, let's talk about that. Are there ever circumstances where you think you should win the cup because you won the event or the team won the event? When do you believe that does have a place?
Like, obviously, healthy competition plays a key role in children, and it can motivate some children, and definitely, in relation to life experience, it can be really good. However, what we need to make sure that it's not the be all and end all, that it's not always focused on awards. So rewards aren't always given out, that it's a sometimes thing, but we're also accompanying it by other things like the effort that you put in. So instead of saying, well done, you're the winner, you could turn around and say something like, I saw you put great effort into that. You must be so proud of yourself. So turn it on the child to let them reflect on themselves, as opposed to just focus on that prize at the end of it.
The external validation can take many forms as well. It's the same when praising, isn't it? I'm thinking of Carol Dweck's work. You don't praise someone or say you're so clever, you're this or you're that. You praise the effort and the persistence that's gone into the result. Are we in the same kind of area here? Because otherwise, children seek the little dopamine hit that comes from that feedback, and can sort of skirt round failure because they want that dopamine hit.
100%. And we see it in video games. It's a prime example. When children are playing video games, they want to win, and they get really upset when they don't, because the message that's given, you're only smart enough or you're only good enough if you get that top prize, as opposed to really focusing on that. I love to see how you kept trying even when you found it difficult, because that's telling children that you're still valuable, you're building resistance, and you're building on that confidence, as opposed to you're only good enough if you win. And that's a message that we need to be careful of children, especially the ones that may not be the most confident in the room, or may not be the smartest in the room, or the fastest at athletics and things like that. How are we making sure that those children are still feeling recognised? We can still build their confidence, and then they're not feeling like they're always passed over or looked over for the children that are always achieving the first place result.
How can you do that, whether you're a parent or a teacher or a caregiver? How can you, if you are in an environment where, in the world unfortunately sort of is, where those awards and rewards and those messages are out there, how can you encourage that child or find a way to give them the feedback that's beneficial to them?
So once again, so focusing on that shift from the outcome of that the outcome only matters to more the effort. So process over product is a thing that that I constantly reflect on in my teaching and teaching my pre-service teachers. That it's not necessarily the outcome that the end goal. It's the journey that you learn on the way, and that's really important. It's the growth and that you notice that you see over the way when they're learning, as opposed to just the final product at the end of it. By recognizing their persistence, adaptability, their collaboration with peers and things like that. So focusing on different things, really focusing on individual children that might shine in particular areas, and really just and being individualized with the children. So don't just do a general well done, good job, and not being specific. Actually look at children and see what they're really challenging with or what they're really working hard on, and mention that, because that would actually be more meaningful for the child. They'll be like, oh, they saw that I was working hard, or they saw that I was trying really hard, as opposed to I won or I didn't win. So it's just more changing our focus for children, focusing on the effort and the teamwork, because that is also what happens beyond the classroom as well when we become adults.
You can also do harm to that child who's used to winning, because they start to avoid situations where they won't, right?
100%. Because what happens if children are constantly winning, then what happens is when they don't win for the first time, they're going to think they're a failure, as opposed to, hey, maybe you don't have to be the best at everything. And that's like obviously a message we need to be really careful about with children, is that they constantly think they have to be the best at everything. And if they don't, then they're letting someone else down, as opposed to a self-reflection. We don't want them to achieve because we think we're going to get a pat on the back by mum and dad or our teachers, or likewise, if I don't win, are they going to be disappointed with me? What we've got to do, encourage children to do, is that we want them to do well because they want to do well, because they have a passion for it, that they're thriving to develop their skills or their knowledge, not just focusing on the outcome.
And as we said, that can do real harm. If you're the kid who gets too addicted to coming first or being the winner, you'll actually avoid putting yourself out into situations where you can grow and learn, because you fear that you might not carry off the top prize. Or it can harm your self-esteem indeed, if your self-esteem is built on that.
And on the flip side, if children are constantly winning as well, what effort are they going to continue to develop their own skills if they think they're going to go in and just go, well, we're going to win anyway? They're not going to walk away of thinking how they can improve and do that critical reflection on oneself. We want children to constantly be thriving to develop their skills, no matter how small or how big, but also not just going in complacent thinking, I've got this, I'm the best. So because that become quite show-offy to their peers, and can actually have impact on their friendships as well.
Those intrinsic factors, just delve into a little bit more about what they are and how you can develop them in children. What are the sorts of things that represent intrinsic motivation?
So what we and constantly what I'll think is I reflected on myself. What motivates me to do something? It's when I like something, when I'm enjoying it, when I get in a state of flow, which means that you kind of lose track and time and things like that. So what we've got to encourage is really try and look at the individual child. What drives them to do well in certain things, and it's going to be different for every child. Some children are going to thrive in certain situations like in group work, and others are going to thrive individually. So what we've got to try and do is look at the individual child and go, what motivates them, and then we focus on that, and then we build their skills by looking at an approach of, okay, well, I'm going to tap into what motivates them, what they care about, what they enjoy, because if children are having fun and they're laughing and they're working with their peers, then they're naturally going to learn, as opposed to being so rigid. So it's really focusing on that growth mindset of, what suits them? How can they thrive through their focus and their effort? But also we give them the message that, you get better with practice, and perseverance is really good, and you don't necessarily get it right the first time you try something.
And going through that experience and seeing that as normal is definitely something that you want them to develop as a muscle. Another matter that sort of comes up perhaps when children are a little bit older, Top athletes will say this as well. There's no point in your goal being to win. That might be your goal, but
Mm.
everyone wants to win. And if there's, 8 of you lined up on the track, only one is going to win. So the goal itself is insufficient. What you can do is work on your systems, work on your training, work on your plan, work on your mindset. At what age do you think should you be starting to help children with focusing on the plan and the system to be the best or do the best you can, as opposed to this idea of having a goal to win or to come first? At what age does that system really become a useful skill?
Look, I think even from early age, I've worked in education and especially early childhood for over 18 years now. And I think from a young age, we can model to children what it's like to be able to recognize your own self-worth and your own abilities and not looking for that external pat on the back to say, well done, you did a good job. So I think even from a young age, we can model that right from birth that, especially when they're becoming toddlers and starting to become more familiar with the world. But even in their artwork that they do in early childhood and things like that, it's not focusing on the end product, who's got the best drawing or who's got, the coloring in with it's all in the lines and things like that. It's about them just exploring their own abilities and feeling valued for being different as opposed to let's all try and do the same thing.
An interesting questions come through here, slightly related, saying, I'm interested to know if going back to the ABCD system of rewards, i.e. grades for school learning, risks the things that your guest is describing. I heard a professor a while back on RNZ saying that going back to A to D grades risks societal harm. This is interesting. This is to do with forthcoming changes to our high school qualification, Elise, which is a credit accumulation system at the moment, right? With merit and with excellence for some. But going back to having numbers and grades. What's your view on that?
Look, I think that can be very detrimental. And also, I don't think it's beneficial for children. I know here in Australia, we've tend to moved away from grades a lot, especially in the primary school, because it's too competitive with their peers of how many A's did you get? How many B's did you get? But also, who gets the final say of how good is the grade? How good do you have to be in order to get that final grade? And does it really tell you your worth? I don't believe it does. It doesn't. And I've done a lot of work around high stakes testings and things like that. And it doesn't tell you what a good person you are just because you can get a good score on your test or your VCE results or things like that. There's always other ways to do things. And I think in our schooling systems, what we tend to do is we put so much pressure on children that they have to be successful, they have to have good grades, where you don't have to be. You don't have to be the best in the class in order to be successful in life. There is so many other valuable qualities that children can have that are so important that it doesn't necessarily mean how many A's or B's they got on their reports to define their worth. And I think that's what we need to worry about is by giving a child a grade score, how are we defining who they are as a person? Are we trying to put them in a nice little box and be like, yep, they're fantastic, they're going to be great in life, as opposed to focusing all the other wonderful qualities like being a good friend or helping someone in need or volunteering in the community? They're all fantastic qualities that are life skills, not necessarily just focusing on your A, B, and C.
There's a lot of conversation in the era that we're going into now about the need for soft skills as well, and you've alluded to some of them. Things like communication skills, empathy, ability to engage with others, ability to cooperate and collaborate, and we don't really hand out A, B, C's and D's for those, do we?
No, we don't. There's always a focus on, as we've talked about, just the best in the class, the one that does the maths the best or runs the faster and things like that. But where's the focus on social skills and just being a good person and being good because it's a good thing to do, or being nice because it's a good thing to do, being empathetic towards other people, or a child seeing someone else sitting by themselves at lunchtime because they've got no friends and they walk up and ask them to join in. I think that is valuable life skills as opposed to that they can get 100% on a maths test. What's going to be more beneficial long term and them having those skills is definitely we just need to focus on different things, I think, or at least incorporate it as opposed to just being so fixed mindset ourselves that in order to be successful, children have to have good grades, but because that's just the wrong message that we're giving children. Because some children are never going to get an A, no
But
matter how much they study, no matter how much homework they do, or how much effort they put in, it's just not in their ability to get an A. And what are we telling those kids? That they're not trying hard enough? They're trying the best that they possibly can, and it's still not getting the outcome that the school desires. So I think we really need to change our perspective on that.
back to where we started, which is that we do want them achieving, but we want them achieving and learning and growing for intrinsic reasons, that's their reward, not just some external, as we said, sort of sugar hit. If you have a child, we've kind of touched on it already, but if you have a child who really is locked in, however, to that desire for I really want to make this, or I really want to do this, or I didn't win and I'm no good and I'm whatever. I don't know if there's an element of personality. You might have one kid who's chill and just does things because they enjoy them and they're curious, and another one who really is focused on that external feedback. Is it just persistence, Elise? Is it just the same messaging you've been talking about, but coming back with kindness and encouragement, just coming back to the same messaging?
100%. And look, depending on the age, you could even have conversations with your child if they're so fixated on winning. How do you think Johnny felt when he didn't win today, or that he didn't get the award last week? And try to build in that empathy to try and get them to reflect on how other people are feeling, because then that also might change their perception on it as well. So it's not something that's going to change overnight, especially if that's how they've been brought up and how their mind is really fixated on. But it's kind of like pocket money as well, or, giving money for jobs. Kids will continue to do it, but then they start going, well, what am I getting out of it? What do I get for doing this? And that's not the attitude that we want children to have through life. So it's a matter of talking to them, trying to give them that other point of view as well. How do you think little Johnny feels when he tries his hardest, but he still can't win the race? What do you think he's feeling? And getting the child to kind of talk through those perceptions as well, because then that's making them being empathetic, which is also another really important life skill, being able to read people and recognize when they're not feeling their best, and things like that. So I think it's just a matter of having these open conversations with children and getting them to explore. And it's not about right or wrong, it's just about getting them to express how they're feeling about certain things, but also a self-reflection as well. How do you feel when you don't win? What does that feel like compared to when you do win?
Thank you. Dr. Elise Waghorn is a lecturer at RMIT University School of Education in Melbourne.